Heyo, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Dribble. Yeah, the show where we take a closer look into the Boston Celtics, the rest of the NBA, and whatever else might come up. I, of course, am Luke Irwin, and I, of course, am your host. Yeah, the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals. Let me say that for a third time. The NBA Finals. As we knew all year, if you've been watching The Dribble, and if you've been watching any NBA basketball, the Boston Celtics are in the NBA Finals. And if you have been watching The Dribble, and you have been agreeing with The Dribble, which is me, essentially, I am The Dribble, hello, Mr. Dribble, then you knew that the Dallas Mavericks were going to be in the NBA Finals. You knew it, because I predicted it way back, and here we are, NBA Finals, Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics. In my last rendition of Hope's Hotel, these were the two hopes, the two highest hopes, the two teams in the penthouses. These were them. I knew it was going to happen. I had a feeling. Luka was getting hot. He was also my pick for MVP. I know how good he can be. That rhymed. And here we are. NBA Finals, Boston Celtics, and the Dallas Mavericks. That's who we got right now. So I'm super excited. And today, of course, we are going to review and preview the Celtics and the Mavs in the finals. What do we see? What do we think is going to happen? What's possible to happen? The matchups we like, the matchups we don't like, the things that we think are going to kind of develop as the series goes on. We're going to talk about it all. And you already know who I'm going to bring in. I'm going to bring in the one and only, the guy who's been a ride or die all season long. It is Timmy KGB, a.k.a. T-Bone Steak. Extra rare. And do you want hollandaise with that? No, I don't. No hollandaise, please. All right. No hollandaise. Timmy KGB on the track. Major wager. Back again also. It's not getting tight. It's getting looser and looser as we go. I am losing by a major margin, but we will talk about it. Let's bring him in. Enough of the pageantry. Let's just bring him in. Let's start it off. Because you know what this is. There's so much to get into. And personally, I suggest we do. Because this is The Dribble. He's got the best life, and he's Timmy now, because he's wearing the glasses, and he doesn't know how to gamble on games. That's why he's up on me real big by 3, 4, 503. Ooh, Timmy's got the stuff that it takes to be the best gambler this side of Tennessee. All right. Thank you.
All right.
You said it was really great. Thank you so much.
Very
Timmy,
good.
how you doing, buddy? You look good. The sun is shining bright on you today. Look at you.
It sure is, baby.
Look at you. And you know what? It's Martini Monday. So let's raise our martinis to Martini Monday. Cheers. And to the NBA Finals starting this week.
Let's go. Look, I feel like, what day of the week is it? What day of the month is it? What year is it? It's been like approximately, I don't know, like 6 months since the last game of the Eastern Conference Finals. And I am very ready for this series to start. Yeah, we haven't seen each other. We have, but we have not potted since the victory, going to the finals. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it and to watch it. I can't wait. Come on, let's go.
I know. I wish they were able to move it up. But actually, for a Celtics fan, we're happy they can't move it up with Kristaps getting as much rest as possible. But like, man, with both of them wrapping it up in 4 and 5 games, I was ready for it. I was ready for a Sunday start. Sunday seemed like the sweet spot.
The Kristaps thing is good. Obviously, we want like all the time we can get for him, and it seems like, fingers crossed, he is on track, hopefully, to make that debut in game 1. But yeah, man, it's just way too long. I feel like the schedule makers, I understand why it needs to be like this, but yeah, come on. It's just way too long to wait. It feels anticlimactic in a way. It feels like the playoffs are over, and yeah, we're just pushing into the most the most
And
thrilling
it,
parts.
it makes sense with the NFL where there's a 2 week gap between that and the Super Bowl because there's a week gap between games anyway. So there's always this like build up and drop off of kind of intense anticipation for the game. So like it makes sense. But here, yeah, it's just so long. For the Celtics, let's see, they wrapped it up on Wednesday, I believe. So this will be a total
No,
of
Tuesday, I think, right?
Tuesday.
It's
That's
like
right. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it'll be a total of, I mean, that's too much. That
it's
is
too much
way
time.
too much. That's to me a total of 9 days off. But hopefully, and we know they are in the right mindset. They got Drew letting them know what everything, how to approach this week appropriately. And so many of them have been here, obviously, in 2022 against the Warriors. We are tested. We've been there. We know what to do. We know how to get prepared. And like you said, Kristaps will be big, but we will get into that when we dive into the preview of the finals. Let's first start off with Major Wager. And like I said, the sun is shining on you, Timmy. You are still cruising, and I have dropped below the poverty line. I now have $952,
Ooh.
which we started with 1,000. So I am now back in red. And you are sitting pretty with 1,695.
Yeah, I am, but I've lost. I think my last two or three. I need a win still. I mean,
Yeah.
it's about more than beating you. It's about my ascendancy and
Wow.
just piling it on. I mean,
So I'm glad that you've already looked past me, and just beating me is not enough. You're too insatiable to be satisfied by just beating
sure.
me. All right.
That's
Well, let's see
gambling.
about it this week because I think that we have a couple interesting bets. And this episode for everybody listening is going to be draft heavy. Yes, we're going to be making some drafts to do with the NBA Finals. And right now, we're going to do a draft to do with Major Wager. Basically, Timmy and I are going to draft what we think this NBA Finals is going to go to in games, as far as who's going to win and in how many games. Right? Is it Celtics in 4, Celtics in 5, Celtics in 6, Celtics in 7, Mavericks in 4, Mavericks in 5, Mavericks in 6, Mavericks in 7? 8 choices total. Tim and I will draft back and forth to see what we think this series is going to end up in. Whoever obviously gets it right, one of theirs in their draft will be the winner. And we'll just do straight up $100 each in the pot, and winner gets the other person's money. How does that sound?
Yeah, I love it. We'll just go head to head. No odds here. No gambling apps in play for this one. But yeah, I'm interested to see what you think in terms of
Yeah.
this series and how many games it might go and who might win. How do we decide who drafts first? What do you think?
Let's just do a coin flip. That's what we love to do here on the Dribble.
Love
We
it.
love a coin
I don't
flip.
have
It's
any money.
50-50.
I've
I have
gambled
a
it all
coin.
away. You've got some, yeah.
I've got coins, and they're all double sided. So I'm going to win regardless, and
Regardless.
regardless. But before we go, I know we discussed 100. What about 200? Lukey needs some juice,
Mhm.
right? I need juice. I'm down, what is it, $600 right now? I need more than $100 from you.
I'm good with that. I'm good with
Okay.
that. That's how not threatened I am.
Damn. I got
Um,
you right where I want you, I guess.
no, I'm good with that. I think this is picking the Boston Celtics fate in the NBA Finals. So it should be a significant. Let's go 500, Luke.
500?
I'm kidding.
Oh,
But we could. But what if we did?
but what if we did? What if we did 300?
Is 500 too
This
much? I
is
mean,
the okay, 500. You were being real. Let's do 500.
I
You want
can't
to do
tell if I'm being
500?
real. Honestly, I've just said it, and now it's out there in the world, and
All
we
right,
did
we're
not
doing
prep for this
500.
or
It is
plan for
locked
this.
in,
We
ladies
want to
and
do
gentlemen. You
500.
heard it. Tim has said it. It was his idea. $500. That means we will each put 500 in the middle. Whoever wins this draft will be maybe even the winner of it all. We'll see how it goes. All right, I'm going to
Maybe,
flip this coin.
honestly, in all probability, that would.
For all of the viewers here, you see that there is a little tails and there is a president's face. I will flip. Yes.
Tails.
Ooh, it is heads.
Ooh, I was just about to say tails never fails, too.
All right. Well,
Yes, it
you
does.
might be happy with what I have for my first pick because I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to be a little bit outlandish with my first pick, but it's something that has been a trend for the Boston Celtics in these finals, and I'm going to I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say it. My first pick in the game draft, the finals draft, whatever we're going to call it, is Celtics in 5. Celtics in 5. That means winning it at home. I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe we split the two in Boston and then we win one in Dallas. I'm going to talk later about our road playoff games and Dallas's at home playoff performances. But yeah, Celtics in 5 is my first pick.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a good pick. I think it'll be more competitive than that.
Yeah, I'm bold.
Slightly. That's bold. That's a little bit bold. Although I do have the Celtics winning the series, and we'll talk about it and why we think that. It seems like we agree. Uh, my first pick would have been and will be Celtics in 6.
Celtics in 6 was my second pick right here. Celtics in 6, second pick. And again, like we'll talk about, the Celtics' ability to play on the road all season long, and in previous playoff performances, JT is great on the road. I love that pick.
Yeah, it seems like they're fated to win it on the road if they win.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Just like
No.
to deny the
Yeah.
Garden a big celebration. But yeah, what about your second pick, Luke?
So my second pick, you just took what would have been my second pick, but my second pick is going to be Dallas in 6.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So look, Dallas in 6, it's in Dallas. Luka Doncic is scary. We're going to talk about it, right? How he affects the game and why, even though they're an underdog and we're a great team, why he is the wild card of all wild cards in a long time, maybe since LeBron James in his prime. So yeah, Dallas in 6 at home, tough series, tough game, but that would be my second pick.
Okay. Surprised you didn't go with Celtics in 7 there. So I'm gonna reach in and swoop in and nab that.
You've done it again. That would be my next pick.
Celtics in 7. It feels, man, if this thing goes to a game 7, what a game that will be. But yeah, sure, why not? I'll say that. So we've got Celtics in 5, Celtics in 5, 6, and 7, and Dallas in 6 picked.
Yep.
All right, what's your next pick?
My next, because again, I just had Celtics in 7. That was mine before that. So now we're slim pickings here. I'm going to do Dallas in 7, right? Luka Doncic, again, on the road has been fantastic, and in these playoffs has had 2 road closeout games where he played incredible. He's great on the road. Game 7 in Boston. We all know how good Luka is, the legacy he's building. That is like a legacy that is nailing right on the door right there, because that would be huge. And he has it in him, or does he? But we'll see.
So that was Dallas in 7.
Dallas in 7.
So that leaves me with Celtics in 4, Dallas in 4, and Dallas in 5.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to jinx anything. Not that I believe in that kind of thing, but Dallas is not winning this series in 4 or 5 games. I mean, that if they do, they could win this series for sure. But if they do, that would be a massive collapse. So yeah, I'm picking all Celtics ones. I guess I'm going to go with Celtics in 4. It's not going to happen either. These are the ones that we don't think will happen. Obviously, these are later in the draft. But could the Celtics sweep? Probably not. It'd be super impressive and strange if they did. But I think I like that more than a Dallas sweep and a Dallas in 5. So I'll go Celtics with the sweep, which won't happen.
Well, all right. You've left me in a predicament, and I'm looking at what I have for picks right now, and it's honestly upsetting because I have Celtics in 5 and then Dallas just
I know.
automatically down the board. Because you commandeered the Celtics train. It's like you understand how good they are, and you've been watching them all year.
You picked a weird moment to jump off the bandwagon.
We've been on since we were children. All it was the Dallas in 6. And then all of a sudden, because of that, all of your picks just commandeered it from me. I should have probably moved and
that's a draft
not take Dallas in 7. But I'm going to take.
I think we bet $500 on this.
I know. Now I'm sitting. I'm sweating a lot. It's hot here in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. It is like 90 degrees at 9 p.m. on a beautiful Monday. So I'm sweating a little bit more than usual. All right. I'm going to make you take the worst one to take. So I'm going to take Dallas in 5, giving you Dallas with a sweep of the Boston Celtics, which would be absolutely tragic. So to recap what everybody has, I have Celtics in 5, which that is my first pick. I had the first pick, everybody listening. So when you hear the rest of these picks, this is not me actually picking Dallas. My first pick is Celtics in 5. And then I have Dallas in 6, Dallas in 7, Dallas in 5.
And my first pick was Celtics in 6, then Celtics in 7, Celtics in 4, and Dallas in 4.
Nice.
So we each got the pick that we wanted. I mean, So you think the Celtics are gonna? The Celtics are gonna win this in. What would you pick first? 5.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. Do you want to make a bet for the first game too?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's make a bet for the first game. Because this one's an interesting one. 9 days off, like we talked about. 9 times. Yeah, 9 times. That's a lot. That's a lot of time. But I think it, like we talked about with Porzingis, it is really helpful for us. Since I had the first pick in the game, the finals draft, I'll give you the first go ahead here for your pick for game one of the NBA Finals on Thursday, 8 o'clock ABC.
So the just to sort of say some of these things, the game line is Celtics favored by 6.5. The total is 214.5. This is on DraftKings, and
Mm-hmm.
the money line is Celtics minus 230, Dallas plus 190. I'm not going to bet any of those things. I don't know why I just said them, just to say them. I am going straight up player props here in
Okay,
this
yes.
game. I do think. Well, I actually don't have a sense of who's going to win game one. I think that my gut says that we'll split the two Boston games.
Yeah.
I really feel like if whether it's game one or two, we're just going to get overwhelmed by Luka or something. But couple things here. So I have a three leg player prop
Mm-hmm.
parlay here, same game parlay. I like Al Horford over 1.5 3-pointers made,
Good.
PJ Washington over 1.5 threes, and Jaylen Brown over 23.5 points. Those three
Nice.
together is plus 485. Um, seeing as how we just bet $500 on the outcome of the series, I'm gonna because I am ahead and I do want to preserve that lead. I'm gonna bet $50 on this. And I've never done that. I've never bet in the two figures in this whole season. But I'm going to do it this week in
You were
a
playing it safe.
effort. Yeah, I'm playing it safe. Which is so betting 250. Again, the odds are really high. 485 are the odds. Betting 250 for sorry, betting $50 for 292.50. Some of the logic there, I think Horford will be left alone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is going to want to live with him taking those threes, just like Indiana did.
Yeah.
And he won't play quite as much. Obviously, we're going to have KP back in all likelihood, knock on wood. But I still think that KP coming back won't shoulder like an incredible minutes load. So Horford will play a lot, and he'll shoot a lot. He's shown a willingness to shoot a ton. PJ Washington coming off a great shooting playoffs. I mean, he's just been scorching high. It's been awesome for this Dallas team. So
Yep.
I just sort of bet on him. He just seems like the kind of guy that we would sort of let his corner threes get away from us too. So one and
Absolutely.
a half on both of those guys, and I really feel this is based on nothing, based on no logic. I am feeling a big Jalen game in game one. It just feels like and again, it's based on no analysis. I think that Jalen's biggest game in this
No,
series comes.
it's based off analysis. It's based off how good he's been in these playoffs,
Yeah,
how
and he's been
aggressive
great.
he's been, how much we have seen in the playoffs, how he has changed his game and shaped his game to fit these moments. And so I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, everyone in Boston knows how great Jaylen Brown has been, except for Tatum, who was really mad when Brown won
Oh my
the
God.
Eastern Conference Player of the Year. As we covered this, but he was just steaming, piping hot, furious.
He's a bad because they don't like each other, Tim. That's the thing about the two Jays. They don't like each other. Did you see on Get Up? They literally highlighted Tatum during the celebration, and Tatum is in mid ear to ear grin and clapping, and he looks like he was just done like hitting his head with his hand, and they like outlined him and highlighted him and was like, look at Jason Tatum. He clearly is not happy. And it was like Mike Greeny and all those guys on Get Up. Absolutely
Yeah, I mean,
ridiculous.
they hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because they ain't us.
And yeah, I mean, that narrative is so tired, and so
It's
I mean, it's
so annoying.
brings up the Jays. They like each other now. Missoula said it all, and Tatum was clearly happy for Brown. I'm kidding, obviously, but yeah, ridiculous
Ridiculous.
coverage.
Shout
This is
out
why
to
a weekend change is too much to have off between these series because people start saying insane Zapruder film type of conspiracy theory stuff. So
Yeah, shout out also to Kevin Wildes, my favorite analyst right now. He's on all of those, not analysts as far as like what I actually listen to get real basketball knowledge, but when I want a taste of the drama, taste of the reality TV. First things first with Nick Wright and him. Kevin Wildes is awesome. He's a Boston guy, but he's been pretty anti-Boston. And he basically shut them down today. They tried to start the conversation of if the Celtics lose the finals, do we break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? And he shut it down. He basically was calling them both fools and was like, will just take a sabbatical, and I'm not doing 8 months again of like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown breakup reality TV. So shout out to him for shooting that down. But my turn for a pick. And we have some similarities here, Tim. We have some similarities. But I am going to go with some game lines. I'm going to take the Dallas Mavericks +6.5 spread. I think it's going to be a close game. These two teams both have a lot of rest. Luka's going to keep them tight. I think our players are going to be fresh. Our bench can be fresh. Sam Hauser has to be a little bit better. I mean, he has shot terribly. He has gone ice cold. So I think that like some time off for him. I think like our bench will be ready, and I think we will play well. But I think Luka will keep them close, and I do see it being under 6.5. Right? I do think the Celtics are winning, but I'm not going to put the money line on this. I am going to do two other legs to this parlay. I have PJ Washington over 1.5 threes because again, he's hot. He's been playing so well for them, and he's one of those pieces where the defense has to focus so much on Tatum. I mean, on Luka and on Kyrie that he's going to be open. You're just going to forget about him in those corners. And when he was with the Hornets, if Celtics fans who have watched some of those games, Monday night in Charlotte, like Tatum loves to play in, he played well. He plays well against the Celtics. He's a good fit, and he likes playing in Boston, which most people do. And then the third leg of my parlay is going to be Jason Tatum over 2.5 threes. This is because I watched a lot of tape this year and the last 5 games that the Celtics have played against the Mavericks. And Tatum plays well because they don't play great perimeter defense, but it's also Tatum shoots a lot of threes against this team. Tatum himself has taken 77.5% of his shots away from the rim against Dallas. So I think he's going to be shooting. I think he's going to be put in situations where they're going to pack the paint. If Porzingis is in, it'll help kind of stretch the floor a little bit. But I see him hitting over 2.5 threes in this game. So I have Dallas beating the spread. I have PJ Washington over 1.5 threes, and I have Jason Tatum over 2.5 threes.
I like it. What's the line on that? Or what's the
So the line total is +375. I'm going to put 100 down. So that would get me 475 total, 375 obviously net, and individually. Actually, it doesn't even have the lines individually right here. But yeah, +375 for the whole thing.
I like it. Cool. All right. We got a lot of money on the line this week.
We do. We have to. Like I said, I have a lot of.
You have to. I don't have to.
You don't have to, but you only put 50 down. I do have to. Well, let's talk about the finals. I want to do something before we start. I just want to give, and you probably will know it before I give it, but put on the theatrical, right? Just let it play out for a second. I'm going to give a blind comparison of 2 players in NBA history. And this has to do with their first finals appearance. Okay. These 2 players have played in finals before. Each one of them has played. One of them has played in a bunch, but one of them has only played in one. So, okay, player 1 in their first finals ever, same age, mind you, 21.5 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game, 3.8 turnovers per game, 37% from the floor, 46% from 3. Player 2, 22 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 6.8 assists per game, 5.8 turnovers per game, 35% field goal percentage, and 20% from 3. Player 2, yeah, 20% from 3.
Hold on, can I guess?
Yeah, guess.
Read the first stat line one more time.
So player 1, 21.5 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game, 3.8 turnovers per game, 36% from the floor, and 46% from 3.
Is that one Tatum?
That one is Jason Tatum in 2022.
I was not prepped on this segment. I just want to say
This is a surprise segment. 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, about 4 turnovers, 36% from the floor, and 46% from 3. Player number 2.
Don't tell me it's
Jason Tatum.
Is it LeBron?
It is LeBron James in 2007. And let's just, for a second, the reason I want to bring this up first is because obviously Tatum is getting dogged. And obviously this is a huge deal. LeBron James played against the Spurs team, which was a dynasty, right? We obviously know the Spurs were a dynasty. Jason Tatum played against the Warriors, which was a dynasty. LeBron James was seen in that time as somebody who could easily become the best player in the league. And this finals, of course, they were swept. Tatum and the Celtics lost in 6 games against the Warriors, but LeBron was swept by the Spurs. And of course, there was chatter about it, but it wasn't as intense as it is about Tatum. Let's just go down the line. Each 22 points per game, right? And you're like, oh, not scoring isn't the only thing that matters. Okay. Each 7 rebounds per game. Okay. Well, what about assists? LeBron always is helping out his team. Each 7 assists per game. Remember, Tatum had 13 assists in game 1 of the NBA Finals. Turnovers per game. Jason Tatum was turning the ball over all the time. 3.8 for Jason, 5.8 for LeBron. 6 turnovers per game.
I can't believe that number. That is a wild number.
6 turnovers a game for LeBron James. Field goal percentage. Well, Tatum just shot terribly in the finals. He was shooting them out of wins. 36 for Tatum, 35 for LeBron. 3-point percentage. Well, Jason Tatum loves to take his pull-up threes. He was just slowing down the offense. 46% from 3 from Jason Tatum in the first finals. 20% from 3 was LeBron James in 2007. So just to give an idea, that's a full stretch out, basically. Their assists were pretty equal. That's why I didn't put it on there. Their steals were pretty equal. Their blocks were pretty equal. But that's a full, basically identical, but LeBron played worse. So just to put it in context, everybody's talking so much about his first finals appearance, how poorly he played, and what this means moving forward, how much pressure is on him. Just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it's very similar for the ways that you outlined in that each of those teams faced a really established dynasty team.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, it's funny to hear that. Like I think that we're at a point in history, in Tatum's history and in Celtics history, where the story is unwritten.
Yeah.
And yet people have made very definitive claims about who Jason Tatum is.
Yes.
And I think you don't list that to illustrate that Tatum was good in that finals, because he wasn't.
No.
But that, it was an instance in which you arrive at the finals and it's just a little too early. Like LeBron in 2007, I believe it was, right? That finals you're talking about, that's, he just wasn't there yet. He wasn't fully cooked.
They were both 4 years into their career.
Yeah, both at the same stage of their careers. And so as Celtics fans, it's not as if we're saying, give Tatum all the credit for being the best or one of the top 3 or 4 guys. It's like, no, we don't think that either. But just withhold the judgment until this series happens, because this is the time, and we've said this before on this podcast, like this is the time when the Celtics are expected to win. Not that if we lose, it'll be, the biggest catastrophe ever, because again, this team is sort of signed into the future. Most of the players, except for White, this duo, contrary to some sort of like clickbaity stuff, is not being broken up. But it would be a massive, massive disappointment, and it would validate the narratives we're already hearing. Mm-hmm. But that's the problem that I think you and I both have, which is that some of these storylines imply that we've already lost this finals, that that the Celtics have somehow dropped the ball. And so I think that's an interesting, the comparison between those two guys. But yeah, it got me thinking as I was thinking about the series and looking forward to it, how much pressure is on the Boston Celtics. And it is, and I made a list. Luke, I did a little research, which I almost never do. In fact, I never, ever do.
You did research?
No, I did a little research.
Oh my
and I went back and thought to myself, who were the finals teams with the most pressure on them? And where does the Celtics rank in that?
You're
not prepped for this either. So you shot me with something, I'm going to shoot you something right back here.
I love it. I love it.
So we have the 2024 Boston Celtics, right, who are under pressure for the reasons that we've stated many times on the show. The some of the things you hear about Tatum and Brown not being able to get over the hump. We've made it there 6 out of 8 years, whatever. This team just isn't good to win at the highest level, yada, yada, like all that stuff. Like there's an incredible amount of pressure for this Celtics team to win, both within Boston and in the general sports media. So going down the list, I went through the 80s. Okay. So 2017 Warriors have to be on that list.
Yes.
It's the team that in 2016 breaks wins 73 games, ends up losing to to the Cavs, and so after that disappointing, that's an understatement, loss in the finals, they acquire KD and everyone hates them, and it's like, oh, what the, they added KD.
Yeah.
That team, if they had lost a final, I mean, that right, even though the 2017 Warriors, I think that's an
Can I
incredible.
can I ask, are you doing this chronologically or by big?
Yeah, I was going to do it chronologically.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because that would not. I have my number
No, no,
one
no.
most
Yeah, I
pressure,
mean,
but
well,
yeah.
I'm going backward in time.
Yep.
2012 Heat. Okay.
Yes.
This is a LeBron team that lost to the Mavericks the year before, right? And that loss was really a nadir for him in his career in some ways. And just the Mavs were really not favored to win that. And, LeBron puts on his headphones at the end, and it was this whole thing. And he had said so much about not one, not two, whatever.
And his only other finals performance was the one we just detailed.
Yeah, so that was a huge, huge pressure situation for the Heat. They had gotten past the Celtics in the Eastern Conference in a really competitive series. And then I also put the 2011 Heat for the reason of the decision had happened the year before, that offseason, and he had said so much about winning championships. And I just remember at the time, everyone seeming to root against Miami, and that was like a really high pressure situation. But so 2012 and 2011 Heat, I put both. I was gonna put the '06 Heat for reasons of like the super team and like whatever. I left that.
No, I don't think because they. No, I think Dwayne Wade wasn't established enough for that to be a lot of pressure.
I'm gonna put this one on as an honorable mention, though I don't think it's competitive. The '09 Lakers.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, they go head to head the year before, they lose to the Celtics. Kobe hasn't won without Shaq. Like this is a big year for Kobe specifically, and they win it. So that's a little bit of an asterisk because I don't think it quite lives up to some of these other ones. Then I put the '98 Jazz.
Yes.
Right. This is a team that they had made it there before. They had lost the finals to the Bulls the previous year. They're an also ran similar narratives to the Celtics, except way later in Malone's career and way later in Stockton's career. These guys can get up to this point but never finish the job. Of course, they didn't finish the job. They never ended up finishing the job, so did not end well for them. Throwing in the '96 Bulls. So
I like that. I like that.
the season, right? So he's retired. He comes back. They ended up losing with him in the previous postseason, and I think the question's lingering of like, is Jordan gonna be the same guy? Can the Bulls resume this dynasty? And they go off and rattle off these big wins. Going back, I have the '89 Pistons.
Yep.
Again, similar story to the Jazz, except the Pistons end up winning. They had sort of come up against first the Celtics in the East, and then the Lakers in the finals a number of times. That team had knocked on the door for a long time, and if they hadn't won in '89, it probably would have been the end. That They also acquired Mark Aguirre. That was like a really big shake-up season for the Pistons, and after all the shit they had talked to, about Bird and everything, and then a contender, the '85 Lakers. The season after the tragic Johnson stuff, they had never beat the Boston Celtics in a finals. And they won, obviously, in '85. And so that team, especially after going head to head with Boston the previous season, Bird, Magic, obviously, sort of like doesn't show up in multiple games, lets the shot clock run out. He gets the tragic Johnson nickname and then comes in the next year and wins it. Huge redemption thing. So I just listed a lot of teams. But I looked at every single finals, the teams with the most pressure. So where do you think the Celtics are at in that list? I'm putting this. This is unprepped. I'm shooting this at you because this finals is right up there with any of these. What do you think?
Well, here's the deal. It's tough. My perspective, this is the most pressure. This is the most pressure I've felt as a fan, as close as I am to it. You know what I mean? But if I take a step back and look at the actual pressures, I think 2012 Heat, that would be my number one, because like you said, they go up there like a couple of buffoons on stage, not one, not two. He wears he goes to do the decision. He makes it a huge thing. Tim, I don't know if you remember, but me, you, and Max drove to we were at a lake house at the
We were
time
at
when the,
Kendall's, like, I mean, not shout out Kendall. I remember it very well. The decision
exactly.
lives in my mind like as if it was yesterday. I don't know.
Exactly. We went to a different location for everybody listening that had cable because at the time we did not have cable where we were, and so we drove to a spot with cable just to watch the decision, just to hear him say the stupidest team in the entire NBA, the Miami Heat, that he was going to go to, and then he went to
We're
the
not
Miami
biased
Heat.
here on the dribble.
No, we're not biased, of course, but I think it's unanimous that the Heat is the stupidest, dumbest Heat culture doesn't exist team in the entire NBA. But he did that, and then he got on stage. They said how many they were gonna win, and then Dirk Nowitzki, who absolutely had an all-time classic game, obviously the layup to win the game, and LeBron had a terrible finals. Like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he had a terrible finals in 2011, and people who doubted LeBron James, which included me at the time, I've since eaten my words. He is obviously the second best player in NBA history. He then goes in 2012 and he is up against a young OKC team with Kevin Durant. Sure, but he was what, 24, 25 in that finals. James Harden, again, young. Russell Westbrook, everybody young on that team. It was a startup team. If they had lost that series,
Yeah.
that would have maybe buried his career as far as the media goes. But of course, they win that
What?
series.
I believe that the Thunder were favored in that series.
I think they were. Yes, they were. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, Luke, that's the same. I put 11 and 12 Heat almost similar because again, the pressure with 11 was just like the immediacy, the proximity to the decision. But in 12, once they had lost the Mavs, I mean, I really remember it being piling on LeBron and piling on that team for good, for justifiable reason. And
Yeah.
again, we've talked about like some of the reasons they pile on the Celtics are also justified, right?
Yeah.
But it was the moment like that team needed to win. So I think that and the 85 Lakers to me of these two are the two biggest
But
ones.
we might be third. We might get bronze. I mean, it
Also
is.
2017 Warriors because I mean losing in 2016 after that season and then getting
Yeah.
Durant, you're the villain of the
Yeah.
NBA in a lot of ways.
But here's the deal for teams that have made the conference finals as often as we have in the past 6, 8 years, they all have at least one championship. We're the only team without one. So there
On this
is
list, yeah.
the
Every
the list
team.
is tough. The only thing in your list, Tim, I love that list, by the way.
Did I miss anyone? Yeah.
The only thing that I would say that you missed is more of a broad spectrum. You have the Chicago Bulls winning their three-peat from 91 to 93. I just would say the most pressure was on any contender in 94 and 95, or in 93 and 94, rather.
Yeah,
So
that's
like
true.
the Phoenix
That's true.
Suns, the Portland Trailblazers, like Clyde Drexler, if you remember in that finals, he was compared to Michael Jordan. It was like, is Clyde Drexler better than Michael Jordan? That was the media back then. And he, of course, lost. Jordan had the shrug game and his legacy, continued on. And then he retires. And it's like, okay, Clyde, can you get it done now that Jordan's not in the league? Okay, Barkley, you lost in 92, 93 to Jordan. Can you get it done now that he's gone? And of course, Hakeem and the Rockets came up
Yeah, the
and they were
Barkley
the
one
ones who
is
won both.
that Suns team is a good one actually. The first yeah. It's good. I want to say this before we keep going. Like you and I have watched a ton of Celtics games together for our
Yeah.
entire lives.
Yeah.
And we obviously like I was born in 1987. So I was around for the tail end of Bird, but I was a little one, not a man.
Not to man,
The
he was.
90s were irrelevant
Yep.
largely. I sort of got into the Celtics in the Antoine Walker period, and that team was largely irrelevant. And then we have, the big three, and we watched with rapt attention in '08, and we were like, wow, that's what it feels like to win a championship. It feels like this year has been building since KG hurt his ankle in 2009,
Tore his
right? Was it
ACL.
his ankle? Yeah, towards ACL. I mean, and
Against Utah in Utah, and I was on a ski trip watching it at way too late, pre-recorded. Sorry, I remember that very well. Ruined my whole 2009.
and from that moment, it really feels like it's all been a continuous arc of development. I know it's a very long time ago, but uh, we've had moments of watching this team, like when they lost to the Cavs, for example, in you remember the year better than me, 2018.
2018, yeah, Tatum's rookie
Um,
year.
I remember you being really upset, and I was just like, you know what? They overperformed. They shouldn't even have been there.
I was
And
upset.
then
We watched that.
you're
We had some
really
people
upset.
over. I was really upset. I didn't talk to anybody for like 24 hours.
This is good for the pod. They should know.
They should know
Uh,
who I am.
but and then even in the bubble, like I was like, yeah, that sucks. But like again, we always felt that Celtics have felt to me since Tatum's rookie year, like, wow, this is way unexpected.
Yes.
We shouldn't be here. Even before that with IT and everything. Like those teams were great, but like if you really look at the roster of some of those IT teams, it's not a
Well,
good
I
roster.
I reject the super team. Oh, like there is a narrative right now. Yes, this year super team. Last year we were very good. But like there's this narrative that we've had a super team for 6 years and haven't been
Oh
able to get
no,
it
not at
done,
all.
which is so far from it. I mean, Kemba Walker isn't in the league and wasn't in the league after. Kyrie Irving, the reason that everybody knows him as somebody with a meltdown is because who he was with the Celtics. He was not who he is now with the Mavericks. He's a changed man. Ayahuasca or whatever he has taken has changed him completely. And I mean, Aaron Baines was our starting center. You want to call it
Well,
a
don't
super
I
team?
mean, are we now just taking just like pot shots at Aaron Baines? I mean, come on, all-time Celt. I believe he was drafted in our all-time Celtics
Well,
draft. I
he's
believe
all-time Celtic and all of Australia too.
all of Australia. But for me, it clicked in with the Warriors a lot. That was the first one in this era that I was like, okay, that one hurts because it feels like we let it go. This one would really sting
Yeah.
to lose. And so yeah, it just again, just not to restate it, but just the pressure feels immense.
Yeah, and
Um,
also like you said, there it is a crossroads. If we lose, like it, love it, hate it, feel indifferent about it, the fact of the matter is the NBA is the media does they select who's MVP, they select who's all NBA. That determines salary, that determines what you can make. The NBA and the media are linked pretty tightly. The narratives do create the futures of a lot of players.
well,
And
think about how much room there is between a loss and a win for Tatum's.
exactly.
Yeah, like I mean,
Jason Tatum specifically, if they lose, he gets the James Harden tag almost
yeah,
of
totally.
playoff
Yep.
choker, essentially. And we know the people who've been watching the games know that he's exceeded expectations. But it is this year is the year where if he does not, people will view him that way. And if he does win, there will be talks. He will be top 3 in MVP if he plays just his normal self next year. His
Yep.
stock will just rise.
Totally.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about which way it could go, right? It could go
Yes.
loss,
Yes.
it could go win. Either way, a lot of people on their shows are talking about who they would take. They're talking about, the players in this finals. They're talking about, maybe drafting players, drafting, 1 through 10 or whatever, and who you would take. I just want to ask you a question outright. Who are your top 5 players in this finals? How would you rank them?
Uh,
And do it quick because I want to get on to the
I'm
rest
gonna
of
do
the.
it quick. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it quick. Unprepped. One Luca,
Mm-hmm.
two Tatum,
Mm-hmm.
three Brown,
Yeah.
four Kyrie,
Yeah.
and five is tough because are we dealing with a healthy Porzingis? The Porzingis we're likely to get. I'm not. I'm going to exclude him from this, and say five. Man, honestly, I would have penciled this in as white, but I'm going to put Drew.
Oh, we have an exact 5.
Same. You have the same five. Yeah.
Same exact 5.
Yeah, and Drew because look, he's just been really good, and I can see him affecting in particular this series where his defensive assignment is going to be so much of the story of what happens, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, it's pretty equally balanced through that top five. Now it's the next 5 through 10, which is probably a little bit more weighted in the Celtics' favor. But then again, the Mavs
Well,
are deep, and yeah, the massive look. The Celtics bench, as you've alluded to before, um, has been very disappointing, and part of that is because Porzingis has been out, so we've had a more shallow bench. But Sam Hauser, you said his name before. He was a low key, like a secret weapon for us before.
secret.
Because he would be left wide open in those corners and we'd spray it out. And if he was hitting 3 or 4 in a row, which he would do routinely, it felt truly impossible to beat the Celtics. He has been epically cold
Epic.
epically cold. I mean, it almost to the point where I believe we've used the term yips.
Yeah.
There is a real mental aspect to it. Pritchard's been okay, but not great. Um, but yeah, like the Mavs have guys like obviously Derrick Jones Jr., like Lively, Washington, Gafford, like all those
Lively
guys.
was
So
perfect from the floor last series. And we'll go into that a little bit more and what that means and why that is. But like they have guys. I mean, you would like to think it goes Drew Holiday, Derek White, Kristaps, but Derek Lively, PJ Washington, we just talked about him being a huge X factor in
yeah,
some of these games,
the
hitting
Mavs
big
have
threes.
lots of guys. Yeah,
Gafford is a great defensive addition. They have some length. They do like to play around the rim, which is why I think Porzingis is probably the biggest X factor. Obviously, Tatum's the most important player. Brown needs to be there. And then we need our defensive front court to take Kyrie and Luka. But Kristaps, just from a schematic standpoint of stretching the floor and taking their paint protection away from the Celtics, is huge. That is the number one thing we need.
I fully agree. I wrote down a couple like keys to the series, and the biggest one I think was I wrote Mavs won't be able to deal with Celtic spacing if Kristaps is good.
Yes, 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 yes,
And we
yes.
don't know what version of KP we're going to get. I mean, like, obviously, we hope that we get the guy we saw all year, but, he's missed a lot of time and rust is real. And also, the injury could leave him a little bit less effective. But yeah, no, the thing of it is, and we've said this before, Porzingis is not some sort of like guy that just happens to contribute. He's actually so central to the game plan. Porzingis is able to space the floor, like Horford spaces the floor too, but the way that Porzingis spaces it, the threat that he represents, well beyond the arc, is just much more than Horford. Like teams are really like happy to have Horford shooting, 10 or 12 threes. Like that would be like an ideal game plan for the Mavs, not
Right.
so much for KP, which is just it's not to denigrate what Horford has done because he's had a great postseason in some ways.
Look, all he needs to do really is hit like two threes in the first quarter and a half. Three threes, 2 to 3 threes. You know how he likes to take them super deep.
Oh yeah.
If he hits those, it will fully set their defense up to
And
be
imagine how crazy the Garden will go.
the Garden will be bonkers. And after watching some of the, so I watched the full games this year. Obviously, the March game is more important than January 22nd because they did not have Gafford or PJ Washington in the first game in January 22nd. But March 1st, they also played this year. The Celtics, of course, for people out there, were 2-0 against the Mavericks this year. But the Mavericks have certainly turned up and are almost a completely different team this year than they were to start it. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have both played great. Tatum has averaged over the last 5 games against the Mavericks, 5 games, 32, 11, and 5 on 44% shooting. And he's been a plus 76 in the last total in the last 5 games against the Mavericks. So he's played well. Celtics have been
That's a
able
lot.
to dominate them. Yeah. But as far as the spacing goes, and how they're playing and how what we've seen from the Mavericks this postseason, the Mavericks have increased or decreased, but had an improved defensive rating in the playoffs compared to the regular season. We all know that. We know that they're playing better. We know that we see them now compared to who they were in the first half of the season. They are a different team. However, we like the Celtics. The Celtics did it all year against good competition. But the Mavericks, although they played really good teams, they have not really played good offensive teams, if you think about it. The Clippers were without Kawhi, and looking at who they had, obviously Paul George and James Harden, outside of game 4, where Paul George and James Harden both scored 33 points, so combined for 66 points, they averaged 35 points per game combined.
Yeah.
So that's only, what is that? 17 and a half, 18 and a half, whatever points per game, 18 points per game. That's not a lot, each of them. So that's not a crazy scoring duo. And then obviously they hit OKC in round 2, SGA, prolific scorer. My whole life is consistent, says SGA. That's 31 points per game, 30 points per game. But beyond that, it's young stars not ready to play.
I'm gonna say in
Up.
that series, SGA was brilliant, but a lot of people really, especially Jalen Williams, really underperformed. I mean, I think it was one of those moments for him where people had to pump the brakes. I remember earlier in the season, literally hearing a segment of who's better, Jalen Williams or Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, no,
And
ridiculous.
stuff like that. And he did Williams had a great season, J-Dub, but
Great.
like you're right, Luke. I think you nailed it. I wanted to say that like this team had a way tougher path than the Celtics did. No taking that away from them. This is not saying that the Mavericks cakewalked their way to the finals like we did, because we did.
No,
But did they play good offenses? No.
no.
And OKC is a good offense, but they were not a good offense
No, but
in
playoff
the playoffs.
basketball is
Yeah.
so different than regular season basketball. And these
Yeah.
guys were great, but this is the Celtics 3 years ago, right? You have a guy who is at the helm, but then the rest of the players aren't ready for the moment. We had Jaylen Brown scoring 11 points in a game, like, and people would say this team, the OKC team, will be good in a couple of years offensively. I believe in the talent that they have, but SGA and nobody is really else a threat. And then Minnesota, Anthony Edwards is a threat, even though he came up short and was shooting poorly in the first couple of games. He found his rhythm a little bit as the series went on. Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, he was 8 for 34 from 3 in that series. He's not a good second option. The Celtics have 5 guys, if Porzingis is healthy, that can score 30 any given night. And they can all create their own shots, and they are also play finishers. They're playmakers and play finishers. So
those teams that Dallas has played, I mean, like they are great teams, great regular season teams, but as you said, like not necessarily great offenses. OKC had a great offense, but not necessarily in the postseason. And more importantly, with the exception of the Clippers, just really young teams. And look, I mean, the Wolves, when they beat Denver, which was a great series for Edwards and for that whole team,
they exhausted
for that
themselves.
franchise, frankly. When they beat Denver, they were immediately the favorite to beat Dallas, and they were the golden child of the playoffs. And it was like, this team can't lose to anyone. Look, I love the Timberwolves. I really do. They had a great season and a great postseason, but they're really young. And when your second best player is Cat, um, he did Cat things in the Western Conference Finals, and we saw the way that that takes you. And it will be interesting to see. It's a different conversation. Where
They
he ends
built
up
their
next year,
team.
what
They
happens?
built their team specifically to beat the Nuggets.
Yeah, yeah, and they did, and that's great for them. But look, like again, Dallas had a harder path than Boston, but it's not as if they played seasoned like finals teams over and over. They played great players and really good teams with really good records. But yeah, I just think that with the Celtics offensive output, especially if Porzingis is healthy, they're just going to face a new challenge. Now maybe they can rise to it, because as you mentioned, after acquiring Washington and Gafford, the Mavs were really, really good defensively, the best team in the league defensively.
Yeah.
And the Celtics are the second best. And there is like, a lot of reason to believe that they'll be able to make it really hard for the Celtics in the finals. But this is too many guys, man. You got Derek White, who we didn't even mention in the top 5, who can go for 38. So what are we talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's just going to be really tough. So the way that the Celtics win is obviously like Tatum and Brown are going to need to step up and have big games, but it's by playing the same form of democratic, moving the ball basketball we've played all year. And there's going to be nights where I always think the Celtics this year, it's like the two-person combo. It can be any two. This was a Drew and Jason night. This was a Brown and Porzingis night. This was a White and Tatum night, whatever. Um, and not necessarily worrying about the heliocentric sort of thing of, is Tatum scoring 30 every night? He doesn't need to. How did the Mavs win? What's the path for the Mavs to win this series? Who by the way, I think have a real chance of winning this.
Of course.
I think the Mavs are a really good team, but
Who are
like,
hot at the
what
right
is their
moment.
best chance of exploiting the weaknesses of the Celtics and winning this series?
Honestly, because what we talked about with the other teams that the Mavericks have faced. And like you said, of course, they haven't had the easy path that we've had. However, they've played teams with only really one scoring option. I mean, Paul George is older. James Harden has had his struggles in the playoffs. Nobody trusts him, right? And then he hasn't even gotten to the finals in his career. And then they play OKC, young startup SGA. Then they play Minnesota, young startup Ant, but really no actual threats on the perimeter. Celtics have a bunch of that, right? So the Mavs' path to victory is simple. It's A, the Celtics fall in love with the three and they missed a lot of threes. So it's not really the Mavericks' path to victory. It's really the Celtics beating themselves in that instance. Now, I could see that happening. However, we saw against the Pacers and against the Cavs that we can abandon the three when it's not working. I think that's the thing about this team that kind of goes over the media's head is everybody thinks they just love to shoot a ton of threes. That is true. We do take a lot of threes, most in the NBA. However, when the going gets tough, we can take it inside. I think we're a team that is able, with Drew, the high IQ basketball, we're able to take it inside. But the Mavericks inside, that's where they win the game. The Dallas Mavericks have made way more dunks than any other team in the playoffs. They have made 118 dunks, hands hitting the rim, balls falling through in 17 games. That is 7 dunks a game. That is a lot. That's a lot of rim. They've obviously mainly alley oops. Luka Doncic probing, gets the defender on his hip. Obviously, the Celtics, like a lot of teams against the Mavericks, play a lot of drop coverage against him because you kind of want to feel him out, see what he's going to do. You got a defender on the hip. He throws it up. Lively, Gafford, whoever it is, hits the alley oop. They have 7 dunks per game. The next closest, I'm going to have you guess, 118 dunks in these playoffs. The next closest team, how many dunks do you think they have?
I'm gonna guess it is. Let's. I mean, I'm gonna guess it's the Wolves with 100 with 98.
So it is the Wolves. So you got half of it right. With 82.
Yeah.
So
Well,
82
Rudy
to
Gobert
100.
missed a lot of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
In the last series.
But I think that's where they beat us. If they can probe, not fall in love with a three, dish it out to PJ Washington for some big threes late, and kind of beat us in the interior. But that really kind of all revolves around if KP is healthy.
Yeah. I also think, I agree with that point for sure. It's going to be about, especially with the various monkeys on the Celtics back, it's going to be about controlling the series early, as every series is about. But, I could see Luka, like, man, Luka, and we haven't talked enough about Luka in this thing, but
Let's talk about him.
let's talk about him a little bit more. He is, in my opinion, like, I don't give a lot of credence to he's the best player in the world talk because I think that's the most extreme recency bias. Like, look, Jokic is the best player in the world, but he is without argument the second best, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And this is a guy who at 17 was competing at the highest level. Like Luka is legit. He is not like I think we could say, well, he's never been in a finals, but it's like, but he's a bit of an asterisk. He kind of has, and
Yeah.
and he is just a fucking gamer. And there is nobody in the league, nobody who you are more scared of when they have the ball on their hip and it is, they have one possession to win the game. Like and all time he ranks probably really high.
Yeah. Yeah. All time.
So like you said, Luka could just go crazy. Now I think in the general game
Do
plan
you
of
double him?
so I'm glad you mentioned that. I was just gonna say, like, how do you play Luka, right? So that's the question. Um, here's what I would say. Trying to help too much on Luka is going to be a way that the Celtics can lose because I see, especially in pick and rolls, Luka coming off a pick and roll, and he's penetrating a little, doing that Luka thing. We bring help from the corner, and all of a sudden, PJ Washington and whoever, Derek Jones Jr., all these guys, even Kyrie, are killing us. I feel like you want to trap Luka in certain situations. You want to, especially early in games, you want to make it difficult for him to get into a rhythm. But if we overreact to him, overhelp to Luka, that is a recipe for disaster for the Celtics. I think that could get us defensively way behind the 8 ball.
Individual physical
Yes.
defense.
I think in
Physical.
general, yes, I agree. You want to play him man because look, mean, the thing with the best players in the league and Luka, maybe more so than anyone else, do you think that any amount of attention is going to put Luka in? Luka only scored 12 tonight. Luka scored 18. No, Luka's
Nope.
going to get his 30. And so you kind of have to live with it, and you don't want because Luka is not a one-dimensional player. Luka is a very good passer, playmaker, everything. So he almost thrives in those help situations, and he's like, "Great, I can spray it out, whatever." I do think though, early in games, we want to be physical with him. We want to trap him when it's possible, make him make tough plays out of traps. But man, I really hope the Celtics, I think, switch and stay home and try to just like weather the storm that is Luka.
Yeah.
Kyrie's a different story, but we can talk about him in a second. But I think with Luka, again, you want to play him tough, but you cannot uh overhelp.
Here's my way to beat Luca. Look, I'm gonna say
There's no way to beat Luka.
there's no way to beat Luca, but
There's
there's
a way
going
to beat
to
the Mavs, but there's no way to beat
there's
Luka.
but there is a way to beat Luca, actually, I think. So look, I picked Luca as my MVP. I love Luca. Me and him basically share a name.
That's true.
We're
I want
basically
to give you
buddies.
credit. You were on the Mavs. You were on Luka before the season.
I'm gonna play it right here. Everybody listen. This is me months ago calling the Mavericks in the finals.
You did. And
I
our
did.
father, I'm going to call him out. He said, "What's up with Lukey picking the Mavs in the finals? Why do you guys even have a podcast?" No, I'm just kidding. But believe
And
that
here I
in.
go. No Stradamus, Luke Stradamus. But I love Luca. Look, I think he is reincarnate Larry Bird. I think he really is that good. I think he's fantastic. However, there's one weakness in his game that the Celtics can exploit. Now, we talked about these other teams that the Dallas Mavericks have faced, and we talked about them not having a second scoring option, third scoring option that is really secure. They have second, maybe, but like third, fourth, fifth. That's what the Celtics have that I don't think the Mavericks can contend with. However, this is what I see being the only weakness for Luka and what he has not faced. Put physicality on him. He hates the referees. He complains to the referees all day long. I think if we press like Lou Dort did in OKC, which obviously they pressed him, Lou Dort is a physical defender, played great against him, got him off of his spot, but more importantly, got Luka complaining to the refs every single time down the court. I think if we were to put someone like Jaylen Brown on him and have Jaylen Brown almost sacrifice some fouls, which I don't want, but I think we have other players that can score in his place. But if we put Jaylen Brown on him and just have him hound him, he gets the ball at the 3-point line, hound him, on him, on him, on him, on him, on him. It's the finals, and it's Jaylen Brown. The refs are not going to call all the fouls on Jaylen Brown. They're going to let some stuff slide. Be physical with him up front. Get him frustrated. Get him looking at the refs instead of the basket. That's the best way to deal with Luka, I think. I think you press him. I think you just immediately high hands, active hands.
I agree.
Move your feet. There can't be waiting like, is he going to shoot a three? I'm going to wait. No. We have such a good defense where if you press a guy like Luka, even if he blows by Jaylen or gets the foul, but say he blows by Jaylen, our help defense is so good. Who's the help? It's Derek White. Who's the help? It's Drew Holiday. Who's the help? It's Jason Tatum. People who with the size, the athleticism to keep up with Luka. There's nobody that's a bad matchup besides maybe Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, maybe Hauser and some of the bench players. But like as far as our unit late game, I say hound him, make him beat you, and then rotate. We're too good at rotations to play soft defense on Luka. We can't wait for him to make the offensive play. We have to make the defensive play and then let him react.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think you're playing a losing game if you're reacting to what Luka's doing.
Exactly.
And yeah, Brown, I think in terms of who's going to guard him, it's almost irrelevant with the Celtics because we'll throw everybody at him.
Everybody.
I think Drew is a great option for him because, Drew, look, he guarded Giannis at stretches this year. He's guarded big dudes. I mean, Luka's not Giannis, but Drew's given up a lot of height and everything with Luka. But I think you're right. Physicality is the key. It's not so much like winning the matchup because you can't. Like his offense is going to beat your defense.
Yep.
But if you hound him, if you pressure him early in shot clocks, um, you can't do that all game. I mean, like it's just impossible with just conditioning and these guys, like Jaylen Brown, like you said, like he's going to shoulder a lot of the offensive load too. But especially in the beginning of the games, if we're able to sort of set the precedent that this is going to be difficult for Luke in
Yes.
some way. You're right. And he's still going to end up with, 33, 8 and 12, whatever the fuck.
But
Uh,
the thing is, look, they are a duo. If we earlier we said we weren't talking about Luka Doncic enough, we're not talking about Kyrie Irving enough.
yeah, no,
Now,
totally.
look, here's the deal. We pressure Luka. I think that's the way. Physicality, he gets tripped up by the referees. I do think that's a huge thing. If we pressure him, he feels like he got touched by Jaylen Brown.
So
He's
does
going to be
Tatum, by the way. They're similar in that way.
Tatum.
If
Absolutely
you're
is like
overly
that.
physical with Tatum or Luca, they are going to sort of like get behind the eight ball. Yeah.
Which is why Tatum has averaged 36 points against the Mavericks over the last couple of games. And he plays well against them because they don't have perimeter physical defenders. They have interior physical defenders, which is rough for Tatum. Basically, if Tatum shoots well in this series, he's going to have a good series, like shoots well from the perimeter. I think their interior defense is tough. But Kyrie Irving does not play well against Derek White. He has had multiple sub 30% from the floor against Derek White over the last 4 years. He does not play well against him. And if we can keep White on him, we switch everywhere, maybe other than White there. I like if PJ Washington off the dribble and Gafford and Green and some of these other Mavericks beat us in the NBA Finals, then sure. I really am a huge proponent of both of those guys. Do not react to them. Make them react to you. I don't care if we press, we double, he comes off of a curl and he hits PJ Washington in the corner and he hits a three. I don't care. I'm not going to go, oh, we got to stop PJ. He's going to do that. If those shots will kill us and make us lose an NBA Finals when we should be winning it, then we don't deserve to win the finals. I think if we let Luka dictate pace, and if we let Kyrie dictate pace, we will lose absolutely. I think we need to suffocate those two entities and let the rest beat us.
Yeah, I basically agree. The only thing I would say is like look back to what was it, game two of the Miami series, where obviously we're dealing with a team that's beaten up and not that good, but when the Celtics give up the three, I mean it's just a high variance league, so you're like you always open yourself up to the possibility of being beaten, and those players,
Yeah.
specifically Washington and Derek Jones Jr., like those guys have had so much confidence coming into the series. And so I do think it's important to stay home on those. Like there's two
Oh,
issues. It's like you don't want to I know like what you're saying, like you want to be aggressive, but you also don't want to be overly aggressive on the Kyries and Lucas of the world because that can open you make you more vulnerable as a defense anyway. Kyrie, it's gonna be fun. I I can't wait, honestly. I mean, this is the element of it that I think you and I probably agree, but like we've gone like 2 hours in this podcast and haven't really talked about him because Boston fans just don't care about him that much anymore. And it's just not that big of a storyline anymore. I mean, you can talk about things that like the Sage and the thing, but it's just not that interesting. I do think that it'll be really interesting to see how the Garden reacts to him and how he plays in that environment. But you said it, Derek White is going to be on, I hope, on duty with Kyrie. I think it would be a misuse of Drew to just sort of have him load up against Kyrie.
no,
I like
different
Drew.
guys,
Yeah,
different skills.
yeah,
It does not work. Drew is a power guard and
exactly.
Kyrie is a quickness guard offensively. So it doesn't work.
And
Derek
that will
White,
also leave
perfect.
White open to sort of moments of being the roving defender that he's so good at being and like coming back for blocks and stuff. But
Well, and also that matchup on the offensive end.
yeah,
Derek White is capable of scoring 30 plus. We've seen it. And he's had a lull in the past couple of series. He could easily kick fire back. I mean, we talked about maybe finals MVP. Don't sleep on Derek White.
oh man, you know I would love a Derek White Finals MVP. He's my personal favorite Celtic. Uh, yeah, this is one thing I'll add to that though. I think the Celtics. I've noticed this about them. They love to hunt mismatches. And there's a couple in this series. They're obvious. It's Luka and it's kind of Kyrie. And I think they're kind of overrated because I don't think Luka's playing bad defense.
Good
Luka's
defense.
like playing pretty good defense and Kyrie's playing pretty good defense. Like, but their reputations. And so I do fear that like at points in this playoffs we'll see, a lot of like whoever it is going against Kyrie or going, really attacking those guys. I just don't think that's a winning strategy. I mean, like again, you'll attack a mismatch when you have it. You'll attack a perceived weaker defender when you have it. But hunting them the way the Celtics have has stagnated the offense. So I just think like uh everything in good measure and
But
make sure you don't
let me give you a
over.
scenario, right? You have set up some switches, some screens. Jason Tatum is on the low block, baseline block with Kyrie Irving defending him.
Well, obviously. I mean, like that's like
You let him cook. I think that
I'm saying
it's
hunting them. Like I
no,
want you to
definitely not.
switch me onto this guy so I can now like,
No.
okay, here we go. I'm setting up. That
Because
kind
here's
of
the deal. Unlike a lot of teams we could have played with the Nuggets and with the Timberwolves, who on the Dallas Mavericks is really truly going to guard Jason Tatum? Like, who is it? Derek Jones Jr.? Because
gonna
Tatum cooked Derek Jones Jr. in this season. Gafford? No, too big,
no.
too
I
slow.
mean, it'll end up being yeah. Derek Jones. I mean, a little bit of PJ Washington, maybe.
Come on. Look, the two teams that Tatum has had the highest points per game against is the Charlotte Hornets and the Dallas Mavericks. Guess the fucking player in those two teams, PJ Washington. He has destroyed PJ Washington. I don't think there's an individual. I don't like, and this is to your point. Don't hunt mismatches because everything is a mismatch defensively. Just don't. I think we should not drive into the paint when it is ill-advised. That's their best defensive strategy. They clog the paint and they're really good. Gafford is really good on blocks. Lively is really good on paint defense. Hell, Luka is great on paint steals
Yeah,
and blocks. That's where he gets most of his steals. I think we need to play a balanced diet of cooking them, but also sharing the ball and understanding that like this has to be by
a lot of
committee.
driving kick. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. Drive, kick, swing, drive. Drive, kick, swing, drive. Drive, kick, swing, drive. That's what it has to be. If it's just Tatum in an ISO with a drive, he'll get blocked. It'll be a Gafford block.
it'd be a lot of
If it's
this.
just, which we talk about this all the time. I love Jaylen Brown so much. Deserved Eastern Conference Finals MVP. If I were to pick Finals MVP, I'd want him to be it too. I love Jaylen. Deserves all the flowers. His one weakness is he will go 1-on-4, 1-on-5 in the paint. That can't happen against the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see because we've gone against teams like the Pacers for sure, um, and yeah, like I would say yeah, even the Heat, I mean, to a certain extent, like where it's like all right, it's pretty easy to get to the rim and to finish or at least have a good chance of finishing, and this team is going to represent like for the Celtics definitely a new challenge in terms of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried. The only thing I'm worried about is the finishing around the rim against their bigs
Yeah.
in isolated situations or in situations where it's a single help. Like if it's you beat your man and there's help, I don't like that. I don't see that yielding good results for the Celtics. They're way too good on help defense in the paint. I just think we need to either shoot really well from three or judiciously move the ball around and have a lot of swing and drives.
But one more thing to this is we said this as our first comment, maybe it can be our last, that when we have Porzingis and he spreads you out,
Exactly.
someone has to guard him. So it might be Derek Lively, and he might be forced to sort of come out of the paint and guard Porzingis at 23 feet, and all of a sudden the paint opens up. So that's why I thought my number one key to the series was this the if Porzingis is healthy and efficient, the amount we can spread them out when their strength has been defending the paint, that could be a key. But again, we'll see. I mean, it's gonna be a great series. I'm
It's gonna be a
excited.
fantastic series.
It's the finals.
Look, this is going to be one of the best finals that we've seen in over a decade. Really, I believe in that. Like
It's gonna be a good one, I think.
this is the
Yeah.
new guard. This is Luka trying to make his statement on the league. This is Tatum, who has won prolifically, making his statement in who he is and who he could be moving forward. This is the Celtics, the most storied franchise in NBA history, trying to break the tie with the Los Angeles Lakers for 17 NBA championships. This is Kyrie Irving coming back to Boston, a place that's completely sullied his reputation around the league, something that started this downfall of his. He is now on a rise. His chance to completely change his reputation. This is Jaylen Brown not making any first team, showing that he's already the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but he has more to prove. This is Al Horford, 38 years old, a lifelong career of playoff achievements, but no championship. This is talent. This is pedigree. This is fandom. Dallas, one of the biggest sports towns in America in all sports. This is Boston, title town, Boston. And look, you said the last thing we wanted to leave it on was Porzingis. I'm going to leave it on one stat. Kyrie Irving is 2-6 in Boston since leaving the Boston Celtics, and he has lost 10 consecutive games to the Celtics. So when he enters Boston, he is 2-6, and against Boston, no matter where he plays, he has lost 10 straight games. Which way does that flip? Do we keep the story, or does he flip the script? It's going to be super interesting to see. Thursday, 8 o'clock, ABC, Celtics, Mavericks in Boston. If you're in Boston, if you're going to the game, be loud, be proud. I can't wait for it, man.
I'm so excited.
Oh my God. I'm just like, I don't know, freak out. Let's freak out in 3, 2, 1.